Ohayou gozaimasu. Krista desu. This is going to be the video for lesson 16. I just posted lesson 15, and for this chapter, we're going to start off with the Katsudo textbook because it has a bunch of vocab and stuff all on the first page, page 122 in the Katsudo textbook. Then we'll go over to the Rikai textbook and go back and forth between the grammar and class notes that are on Canvas. Okay, cool beans. So let's get started. First off, in the Katsuda textbook, I'll look at page 122, this page right here. Okay, so this has to do with exercise. That's what this chapter is about, and different types of exercise. A lot of the words are in katakana, so make sure you know your katakana. So let's start with A. So A says jogingu o shimasu or hashirimasu, hashirimasu. So jogingu o shimasu is to do jogging, so you're jogging. And then hashirimasu is also jogging, just the Japanese word for it. B is suiei o shimasu or oyogimasu. So suiei is like more of it's the noun version of swimming, and oyogimasu, it means to swim, so it's the verb. C is taiso o shimasu. So taiso can be translated as exercise or it can be translated as stretching. But in the context of this chapter, it looks like taiso is going to mean stretching because that's what the picture shows. Okay, and then D is walkingu o shimasu or arukimasu, arukimasu. So walkingu is walking. So you do walking. So that would be the foreign word for it, and then the native word is arukimasu. Okay, and then E is aerobikusu. So that's aerobics. So aerobics o shimasu. So it's like doing like Zumba or something. I don't know if everyone knows what Zumba is, but I've heard that it's a thing that people have done and it's called aerobics. Okay, so F is toreiningu o shimasu. So like weight training, basically. E, F, and then there's G. Okay, G is yoga o shimasu. So yoga. So she's doing yoga. H is yoku nemasu. So yoku is night, nemasu is sleep. So you sleep at night. I know that's not really an exercise thing, but it's there. I is asagohan o tabemasu. So we're getting into the section where we're talking less about exercise and more about activities. So asagohan is breakfast. Remember, hiru gohan is lunch and ban gohan is dinner. So she's eating breakfast. Okay, and then J is yasai o tabemasu. Remember, yasai is vegetable. So he's eating vegetables. K is ongaku o kikimasu. So he's listening to music. L is osake o nomimasu. So he's drinking sake or Japanese alcohol. M is osake o nomimasen. So this person does not drink alcohol. N is tabako o suimasen. So you don't smoke tobacco or cigarettes, basically. Cigarettes is tobacco, basically. Okay, and then let's go through the Katsudo textbook and see if there's anything I have in here. On page 124, the third bulletin point right here, it says, Watashi wa yasui jusu o nomimasu. So yasui jusu is just vegetable juice. I don't think that was in the Rikai textbook, but in case you know. Yeah, I don't think there's anything else really in the Katsudo textbook that was important. So we're going to go over to the Rikai textbook next and see if there's anything in here that wasn't shown. Okay, so we're going to be looking in the Rikai textbook at page 144, and we're going to be going through a few of the words and sentences down here at the bottom of the page. So number 1 says, 私は毎朝近くの公園を走ります. So 私, I, 毎朝, my is every, asa is morning, so every morning. 近く is like close to something. 近くの公園, so koen is park, so a park that is close, or hashirimasu. Okay, and hashiri was, I've already forgotten what hashirimasu. I believe it was to run. So they go running every morning in the park. Okay, number 2 says, 私は結婚をために野菜をたくさん blank. So you probably put 食べます here. Yeah. So 結婚 sorry, 健康 means health. So 健康のため is like for something. So for your health, you do something. Yasai is vegetables. Taksan is a lot. And then since you're talking about vegetables, you're probably talking about eating it. So you would add tabemasu to the end there. Okay, 3 is aniwa. Ichinichi. So ichinichi is like once a day. Ichinichi ni 20本ぐらい卵を blank. Okay. So so your older brother, Ani, once a day, or yeah, on the like the first day of the month probably, about 20 times, or no, in the span of a day, I think. This one's a bit weird. In the span of a day, your brother eats around 20 eggs. So pon is like a counter number, and kurai is like about. Kurai and gurai are like about, and tamago is egg. So about 20 eggs per, it's either per day or on the first day of like the month kind of thing. Sorry if that's a bit confusing. Okay, and then number 4 is imoto wa yoku chikaku no puru de blank. That's probably oyogimasu, which is to swim. So yoku is often, chikaku no puru, so a close pool, and imoto is your little sister. So she often swims at the pool. Okay, and 5 is Yamada-san wa mai asa 6時に blank です. Yes, okay. So Yamada-san, every morning at 6 a.m. he probably wakes up. Okimasu. Yeah. This one's a bit more confusing for me, this chapter. I don't know why. It just is. And then moving to the next page, at the top of the page, 145, we're going to look at these really quick. I'll just translate them really quick. Okay, first one is kai, which means like an amount of times. Jikan is time, like with like a watch time. Bun is minutes, or sorry, fun. Yeah, hun is minutes. Kiro or metoru is kilometers and meters. Shukan is weekly. Okay, and then we'll move down to the, if you can see that, kanji down on the same page. Okay, so the first kanji is mai, which is the prefix for every. So you can say mai asa, mai nichi, any number amount of times. You could say different amount of times. So mai is just the prefix for many before a different word, typically having to do with some type of time. Shumatsu is weekend. Genki is like you're well. Soto is outside. Okimasu means to wake up. orugimasu, sorry, arugimasu means to walk. Hashirimasu is to run. Oyogimasu is to swim. Okay, and then we'll move on to the next page. Okay, so we're going to do the first concept. First concept is on page 146 in the middle of the page. It's verb 1, tari, verb 2, tari, shiteimasu. So this is listing examples of actions, and it implies that there are other relevant actions. Shiteimasu is often contracted to shitemasu. So you can do shiteimasu or shitemasu without the e in the middle in spoken Japanese. So when you're saying it, it sounds like, it doesn't sound like shiteimasu, it sounds like shitemasu. Okay, looking at the verbs that are right below, it says osobimasu, which is to play. You're going to put that in ta form. So asonda. So remember, in te form, it's asonde. Now it's going to be asonda because we're putting it in ta form. Arukimasu, to walk, is turning into aruita. Oyogimasu turns into oyoita. Hashirimasu turns into hashita. Mimasu turns into mite. Tabemasu turns into tabeta. Sorry, yeah. Mimasu turns into mita. Tabemasu turns into tabeta. Shimasu turns into shita. Okay, so let's look at the first example that Sensei has. Oh, that's the wrong one. This one. All right, so when you're giving examples of something you do regularly, yes. Yes, so it doesn't necessarily mean to add the ta here. If it's one that ends with a da sound, you want to make sure it says that instead. It doesn't necessarily always have to be tarimasu. It could be darimasu. It just depends on the verb that you're using. Okay, and you can include as many verbs as you want, I think. So you don't have to just use 2 verbs. You could use 3, 4. I don't think there's really a limit to how many you can use. Okay, so this example is kekkon no tame ni. So for your health, yoga o shitari, hashitari shiteimasu. So for your health, you do yoga, yoga is something you do, and then you go running as well. And then there are more things that you also do, but you're just giving a few examples of it. Okay, so let's move on to the next thing. Seeing if there's any words in here that aren't talked about yet. Yep, so at the bottom of page 147, this big picture right here. I'm not going to go through all of them, but I'll go through a few of them that aren't talked about before. So first one, A, is catchball. Catchball o shimasu. So you're playing catchball, which I'm assuming is just throwing a ball back and forth between you and one person. Okay, then we're going to go to D, inu to asobimasu. So you're playing with your dog. Okay, G is badminton, badminton, o shimasu. So you're playing badminton. And another way to say walk, so there was walking, and then there was arukimasu. Another way to say that is sanpo o shimasu. So that means kind of to take a walk, not the act of walking, which would be the verb, which would be arukimasu. Okay, page 148. This concept's a bit confusing. It's specifically talking about when you're counting a certain number of people or a type of people. So this is going to be at the bottom of page 148 underneath the pie graphs. So it says verb in its plain form. So instead of tabemasu, it's going to be taberu plus hito. And if it's a negative form of it, it's going to be the verb with nai form instead of masen, and then plus the hito. So the example, it says, so it's for sentences that end either with the polite form, des or mas, or the plain form. The plain form is also used to modify nouns. So I'll kind of explain what that is. So let's look at the little boxes below. It says te I ne I ke I, te ne kei, which means polite form, versus the plain form, which is futsu kei, futsu kei, futsu kei. So the polite form of the verb to drink is nomimasu. The plain form is nomu. And then the polite form, so those are both positive. To make it negative, you would say nomimasen or nomanai. So nomimasen is the polite form. Nomanai is the plain negative form. If you remember, for the nai, when you're using nai, you're going to change the e sound in nomimasen to no ma and a sound nai. So no manai versus no mi masen. Okay, and then to make it into past tense, the polite form for to drink something is nomimashita. The plain form is nonda. So remember, nonde is the te form. You're going to change that into the ta form to make it a plain, it's going to be past plain positive form. So nonda is you're going to be your plain. It happened in the past and it's positive. So if you want to say something that is polite in the past and negative, you would say nomimasen deshita. So you're combining nomimasen, which is the polite negative way to say you don't drink something, but you're putting it in past tense. So nomimasen deshita. That's what makes it past tense. And now to make it in the plain form, so it's going to be plain form, negative, in past tense. So we're going to do the same thing. We're going to take nomanai, which is the plain form. So it's the plain form, negative form, present. We're going to take nomanai is going to now turn into the plain form, the negative form in past tense. So no ma na, drop the e, kata. No ma na kata. It's a bit complicated at first, but you get the hang of it after a little while. So let's look at what Sensei has for this one. So here's some examples. Asa gohan o taberu. Remember, put your verb in dictionary form. Taberu hito wa 20 nin desu. Okay, so in this context, you're going to be saying nin instead of hito because you're talking about a number of people in this context. So there are 20 people who eat breakfast. So it kind of makes sense why we're using pie graphs here, because you're saying, oh, out of this many people did this. Okay, here's another. So this is going to be the positive form of the sentence. So taberu hito wa 20 nin desu. So this first part is going to be hito, second part is going to be nin for this example. Okay, to make it negative, so asa gohan o tabenai, so they did not eat. Tabenai hito wa 30 nin desu. So the people that don't eat breakfast, there are 30. There are 30 people who do not eat breakfast. Okay, here's some more examples. Yoku sorry. お酒を飲む人は10人です。So often, people that often drink alcohol. So often alcohol, drink, people. So how often do these people drink alcohol? Or how many people often drink alcohol? There are 10 of these people. And of the people that don't drink alcohol, you would say 飲まない because they don't, it's negative. 飲まない人は5人です。Okay, and then this next example is 毎日スポーツをする which means to do something. 人は10人です。So there are 10 people who play sports every day. Okay, and 時々, which is sometimes, スポーツをする人は20人です。So there are 20 people who sometimes do sports or play sports. And then for the people that don't, it would be 全然, which means not at all. しない人は25人です。So you don't necessarily have to say スポーツする人は blah 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 because you already know the context of what you're talking about. So you're just going to say しない人. So they do not, the people that do not is 25. The people that do not at all, there are 25 of them. So there are 25 people who don't play or do any sports. Okay. 初めて. So that's like the first time for something. 初めてトレーニングする人は So the first time that people do training, トレーナー, so trainer に来てください. So if it's for your first time doing training, these people, so the people that do training, please speak to a trainer. So for people training for the first time, please speak to a trainer. Okay, so it's just basically just about counting people and seeing like, oh, this number of people versus this number of people. That's how many people do this. Okay, and then the last thing in the textbook, I won't change the screen, but on the last page in the chapter 150, it says on number 4 at the bottom of the page where it says Jim's sports club or the Marugoto sports club. Number 4 it says ジムの中では携帯電話を使わないでください. So ジムの中 which is inside the gym. 携帯電話 which is your cell phone. 使わない which is do not use. ください. So please don't use your cell phone inside the gym. So that's all of the textbook. Let's look at this last thing. And then we'll be done with the video. Okay, so the first one we're going to be talking about 週に何回ぐらいですか? So about how many times a week are you doing something? 週に何回ジョギングをしますか? So how many times a week are you jogging? Okay, and then 2 talks about tari and tari shimasu. 3 talks about the hito and nai together. So those two concepts are kind of together. Okay, so 1 talks about kenko no tame. So for your health, remember kenko is health. Tame is like for, so for your health. に何をしていますか? So what are you doing for your health? Someone might reply, ジョギングをしています. Or so in spoken Japanese, you could just say ジョギングをしてます. But to read it out directly with jogging, it's ジョギングをしています. Remember the e's there when you're writing it, not necessarily when you're speaking it if you don't want to. Okay, and then the second example is 毎日駅まで歩いています. So 毎日 is every day, 駅 is station, 歩いて is walk. So every day you walk to the station. Okay, second example, it says 健康のために何かしていますか? Do you do something for your health? Okay, so the particle changes the context. And also, what do you do? Or do you do something? Okay, and you can respond, はい、ヨガをしています. So yeah, I do yoga. Or you say, いえ、何もしていません. So 何も is like, so 何 is what, も is like whatever. していません is do nothing. So there's really nothing that I do in the context of this. So there's nothing that I really do for my health. Okay, and then the next section says, 週に何回 blank をしますか? How many times a week do you do blank? You can say, oh, one time a week. So you say, 一回します. And or you could say either the number of times a week that you do something, the number of times a month you do something, the number of times a year, a day, whatever number of time you want. You say, oh, this number of times I do this. Or you say if you don't do anything, you say 全然しません. So I do nothing at all. Or you can say 毎日します. So every day I do something. Okay, and then this right here says 週に何回ぐらいですか? You can say 3回ぐらいです. So, oh, how many times a week do you do something? Oh, say, oh, I do it about three times a week. Okay, and then tari and tarimasu is listing your actions. So remember, you can have multiple, you can have more than two. So, 土曜日何をしますか? So what do you do on Saturdays? You can say ジョギングをします. Or you can say 買い物に行きます. So you can go jogging or you're going to go buy some things. To combine those, you would do this. You say ジョギングをしたり、買い物に行ったりします。行ったりします. So in order to combine these, you'd use tari when you're listing your actions, so your verbs. Okay, 日曜日の朝に何をしますか? So what are you doing in the morning on Sundays? You could say 友達と話します. So you're talking with your friend, or and you could also say 宿題をします. You're doing homework. To combine these, you could say 友達と友達と話したり、宿題をしたります. Okay, and then this last example for this section is 夏休み何をしますか? So for summer vacation, what are you doing? You could say universal, so universal, ユニバーサルで働きます. You're working at Universal for summer break, or you could say 海に行きます. You're going to the beach. To combine these, you would say ユニバーサルで働いたり、海に行ったりします. Okay, and then this next section goes back to the polite negative forms that we were talking about, like the nai, and putting it with hito. So you could say, oh, I'm doing this positive, this number of people. Oh, I'm doing something negative with this number of people. So let's look at the examples. お酒を飲みません plus その人は10人です。So you do not drink alcohol and there is 10 people. So to say that there are 10 people that do not drink alcohol, you would change 飲みません because that's the end of the sentence. Since you're continuing the sentence, you're going to put it in nai form, which is the plain form. Masen is polite, nai is casual. Okay, so combine these, it would be お酒を飲まない人は10人です。Remember, change the no mi, the e sound, to an a sound, no ma, for no manai. Okay, and then the next example is 朝ごはんを食べます plus その人は3人です。So you eat breakfast and there are 3 people. So you combine this to say that there are 3 people that eat breakfast. 朝ごはんを食べる because you're putting it in plain form and it's positive. Remember the first example is negative, this is positive. 朝ごはんを食べる人は3人です。Okay, so typically this first one's going to be hito, second one's going to be min. Okay, next example is 働いています. So working with その店はラーメン屋です. So ya indicates that it's a shop. Ramen ya is a ramen shop. So there's a store that's a ramen shop. So to combine these to say the store that you're working at is a ramen shop, you would say 働いている店はラーメン屋です. So you're putting the verb into its plain form, its dictionary form. So this one, it doesn't have to do with the number of people. It just has to do with combining 2 sentences together when the first sentence is saying that there's a verb, there's an action. So 働いている店はラーメン屋です. So it's basically changing it from the verbs at the end of the sentence to now it's at the front of the sentence. Okay, and then the last example is 生まれました, which means you were born. It's in past tense. So 生まれます is to be born. 生まれました is the past tense, you were born. Plus 国は日本です. The country is Japan. So say you were born in Japan, you would say 生まれた, put it in ta form because it's a positive, so it's a casual, positive, and plain. So 生まれた国は日本です. Okay, I'm gonna check out this link really quick and see what it is. Okay, so I just looked at it and it just looks like it's radio exercises where it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, and you just like following along for exercises. So you don't necessarily need to look at the link that's at the bottom of this unless you just want to. So it's for taiso, for stretching basically. So if you want to look at it, you can. It's there. I don't think it's really necessary because the dude speaks in English, so it's not much help there. So thanks so much for watching this video. My Zoom is doing weird stuff again. Hopefully this video didn't mess up somewhere along the way with Zoom. So thanks so much for watching. I have 2 more videos that I'll do for 17 and 18. If you have any questions, let me, Imo Sensei, or Andrea know, and we will help. Thanks so much, everyone.